Hello, my name is Rebecca Mogg, and this is the presentation for my essay, Jarring Perspectives on Death. So what makes literature great? The world is full of literature, and anyone who has read some of the literature available to them knows that different stories are more emotional to read than others. Why is that? After learning more about famous writers Ambrose, Bierce, and Kate Chopin and reading some of their literary works, I believe that writers' life experiences, opinions gained from those experiences, and convictions directly contribute to the emotional effect a literary work has on the reader. The first work of literature I will be talking about today is by Ambrose Bierce. Bierce was a famous writer whose works are compared to great authors such as Edgar Allan Poe. In 1864, he suffered a head trauma while fighting in the Union Army. From a young age, Bierce was heroic and willing to sacrifice everything for what he thought was right, but the trauma he experienced seemed to have affected him on a very deep level. One of Ambrose Bierce's short stories is An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. It follows the story of Peyton Farquhar, a Confederate sympathizer who was caught trying to sabotage the Union Army. Peyton has been sentenced to death by hanging, and he wishes he could go back to his wife and family. He then escapes and takes a treacherous journey home. Just as he reaches for his wife, he wakes up. The journey has been a dream, and Peyton Farquhar is executed on Owl Creek Bridge. Peyton Farquhar's story is in many ways a reflection of Ambrose Bierce's life. Bierce and Farquhar were both passionate for their cause, but still had to make sacrifices. Bierce seemed bitter about his trauma and felt like it was completely unfair that he was willing to fight for what he felt was right and still had losses along the way. He seems to have come to the conclusion that death was an unfair being who would come to anyone, but especially those who are considered heroes. The second literary work that I will be discussing in this presentation is by Kate Chopin. Many of her characters embrace the death of their friends or family members. When she was young, her father and grandmother both passed away. Then later in her life, her husband passed away. These experiences with family members can be seen in the lives of her characters. The Story of an Hour is a famous short story by Kate Chopin. In this story, the main character, Mrs. Mallard, finds out that her husband has passed away in a railroad accident. She has a brief period of mourning, then finds joy and freedom in the fact that she can now live for herself. She rejoices in her newfound freedom, but then finds out that she was misinformed. Her husband is very much so alive. She is shocked by losing her freedom, so much so that she has a heart attack and dies. Kate Chopin's life is reflected in her writing in many ways. Her father died when she was young, and his cause of death was a railroad accident, just like Mr. Mallard. When Chopin was older, her husband passed away. After his death, it became known that she had been carrying out an affair while he was alive. His death seemed to have opened a door of freedom to her, and it is possible that she saw her mom go through similar experiences after the death of her father. Initially, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce and The Story of an Hour by Kate Chopin are different in whose death the story follows. Bierce's story is about the main character's death, while Chopin's follows the emotions experienced by the main character after her husband died. This difference makes sense because Bierce had personal sacrifice in his life, while Chopin's family members are the ones who passed on. Ambrose Bierce seemed to think that death and his personal trauma was unfair, whereas Chopin felt that the death of her family members was a freeing opportunity rather than an unfair occurrence. So why did Ambrose Bierce and Kate Chopin write? Some writers such as George Orwell of Animal Farm in 1984 believed that writers' motivations to write were egotistical, political, or an attempt at being artful. However, most writers, including Margaret Atwood, believe that writers write to express their opinions and convictions gained from their personal experiences. The short stories by Ambrose Bierce and Kate Chopin seem to err on the side of portraying their opinions in their stories. Their stories are incredibly emotional to most readers, and the connection seems to be that their stories are primarily based on their life experiences. Their stories are personal, which is why their stories are so powerfully emotional to any reader. The following slides are the sources that I used in the creation of this presentation and essay. Thank you for watching my presentation, and have a wonderful week.